Arsenal completely destroying Man City. We have Real Madrid losing to Espanyol. And we have Nottingham Forest bouncing back from last week in the best possible way. We're going to talk about those three games in this episode of Monday Night Football here on the SoFlo Soccer channel. I know, a very original name, right? But essentially every Monday, we're going to recap the best games that's happened over the weekend. And I think these three games really stood out to me. We're going to start off with the Arsenal versus Manchester City game to kick things off. And this was bad for City, dude. Arsenal beating them 5-1 is like, what the actual hell? Like, we knew this was going to be an interesting game to watch because City are in poor form, Arsenal are really thriving, but 5-1. The goal came in the second minute for Odegaard. Haaland scored in the 55th, so it was a pretty, I guess, even game at that point, but we're going to get really deep into it in just a second. Arsenal did everything correct in this game. They were 1,000,000% the better opponent, and it showed in multiple, not just statistics, but just throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes. When it came down to the passing, the pressing, overloading on ball side, courage, determination, just like the work ethic from these Arsenal players was fantastic to watch from beginning to end. And City just got outsmarted in every possible scenario. The way that they control the game, they pass around the back, they're patient, they look for those openings, and they're so accurate when doing so, just proves how completely dominant and just how much they've progressed as a club to be one of the better clubs in the world. It's just crazy to see that City got beat in every category: athleticism, passing, speed, like just literally everything that you could imagine. City got beaten. I want to give a huge shout out to Miles Lewis Skelly as well as Ethan Nwaneri, two academy products from Arsenal. Not only will this be a game to remember for Arsenal, but can we talk about the game that Lewis Skelly had? Like, he was just phenomenal all game long. He won 8 duels out of 9. He performed with incredible composure and determination throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes. He outmuscled Erling Haaland. His passing was on point all game, and of course, he scored. Same thing with Ethan Nwaneri. I mean, this kid is 17 years old. He came off the bench with 84 minutes on the clock and made an instant impact. Like, he genuinely just had a lot of balls, just running at the City defense whenever he had that opportunity. That left-footed shot after the 36 pass sequence that lasted apparently 2 minutes long was just like pure football, like at its finest. The switch from Rice, seeing Nwaneri like all by himself, and then him being so composed to shoot from that angle, from that distance against Manchester City, just says it all at 17 years old. You can really tell the difference of just professionalism and the level of skill that you have to be at to play in the Premier League at that young of an age. And in terms of Man City, dude, like, that was just bad. It was so bad, and they have been extremely humbled. And now that they're going to be going into the Champions League game against Real Madrid, like, you just question everything that they're capable of at this point, and like, how are they going to be able to make it through this playoff against Real Madrid, who are they're top of the leaderboard? And yes, they lost, which we're going to get to in a second, but I mean, like, it's just not looking good for them, and they are in desperate need of like a rework, a revamp of players, or something. Something needs to change in that squad, because it's obviously not working out. Like, considering the fact they conceded 5 goals, man, it's really bad against a really top side. Just like, what matters the most? If you can't beat the bigger teams in the Premier League or even in the world, then you're not going to win the Premier League, and let alone compete in Champions League. So yeah, City are in shambles, but props to Arsenal. I wanted to mainly focus on them today. That was an amazing performance by them. Let's move on to Real Madrid. It's such a great feeling to start off this week knowing that Real Madrid lost to Espanyol. And as you can clearly tell from my Barca shirt, I favor one club over the other. But Espanyol was a team that started in the relegation zone before heading into this game against Madrid. And with that win, they are 1 point above the relegation zone. But hey, it's still out of the relegation zone. And they ended Real Madrid's 6-game winning streak. They're still top of the table. They're still 1 point ahead of Atletico Madrid, but it's now 1 point difference between first and second. Barcelona are still in third with 45 points, just 3 points behind Atleti and Madrid. And if you look right above my camera right here, Madrid and Atletico Madrid are going to be playing this Saturday on my birthday at 3 p.m. to see who's going to take that first place spot. The game this weekend is going to have huge contention on what happens and who wins the league at the end of the season. In my opinion, they're going to be without Antonio Rudiger that game, who did suffer an injury in the game against Espanyol, and who is also going to be missing the Champions League game against City as well. I mean, but there's just so much to go over in this game. I mean, like in terms of the referee performance, in terms of Espanyol's performance, in terms of Madrid's performance, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to try to break it down and make it as quick as possible so you guys aren't sleeping. I do want to say one thing though. Let's start off with the refereeing performance. Yes, it was extremely questionable. I cannot deny that. Espanyol should have definitely gotten a red card in that moment, in the moment that we all know what I'm talking about. This moment right here, like you could clearly see, and I can't show the video itself, but when this player literally like dove and like both of his legs straight out, studs exposed, and he actually makes contact with Mbappe, as you can clearly tell in the circle right there. This should have 1000% been a red card, and I don't care what anybody else says, and I think honestly everybody can agree with me on this. And this incident happened about 20-25 minutes before the actual goal was scored for Espanyol. And what's more insane is that the player that lunged at Mbappe in that tackle in the 60th minute was the same player that scored in the 85th minute to win the game. The entire play should have completely went to VAR and been overruled and should have been given a red, but for some reason that just did not happen. I mean, and even earlier in the game, there was that moment where Real Madrid's goal was disallowed because Mbappe fouled one of the Espanyol players and like kind of shrugged him off. A lot of people say that like Mbappe was kind of ganged up on at first and then he was just kind of pushing him away. But that's another mistake by the referee because he called the foul before, I guess, the goal was scored, so they weren't allowed to go to VAR. So in order for a goal to be reviewed by VAR, it has to actually count as a goal. So if the referee would have just counted the goal, then the VAR would have been able to check it and then be like, hey, like there was a foul here. But no, the referee jumped the gun on that whistle again. Very poor refereeing. I mean, like those are two big decisions to be making at this level of the game. Okay, so now let's like move away from the actual referee performance and instead focus on Real Madrid's performance, because let's all also be completely honest with each other. Real Madrid played like ass. They have failed to score yet again this season with a team that consists of Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Mbappe, and Rodrigo. Like, you can't have a better attack than that. And so there's just no excuse for you not to be able to score. I understand that Espanyol were playing insanely defensive, but how could you blame them? Like, they're the complete underdogs of this game. There was just no possible way. Like, they could have won. So they had to play defensive. And when you are faced with a team that has Bellingham, Rodrigo, Vinicius, and Mbappe, like, what else are you going to do? You're not going to go all out offensive. And when you look at the fact that Madrid had like 80% of the possession, they had like a 2 or 1.75 XG and still like not able to score. I know statistics don't matter to a lot of people, but it's like, if you are projected to score 2-3 goals against this team and you fail to do so, you deserve to lose that game. You just got outplayed. You literally got outplayed. Yes, you had two massive controversial calls that went against your way that ultimately decided the game. But what I'm trying to say is that Madrid just weren't good enough overall. Despite the refereeing decisions, they should have been able to score. They had 21 total shots, 7 of them were on target. But only one, maybe 2 of them were actual big, clear-cut chances. It just wasn't good enough. Absolutely not good enough for Real Madrid. I do feel for them though, because those are really bad decisions from the referee, but at the end of the day, Real Madrid need to do better, especially when they're going to keep competing in the Champions League against these higher tier sides. Like, this is an Espanyol team who are in the relegation zone. They're fighting for their lives to stay in La Liga. You can't be having a performance like this. And last but not least, we have Nottingham Forest absolutely destroying Brighton 7-0 after last week they lost to Bournemouth 5-0. Nottingham Forest are just looking really good in qualifying for the Champions League next season, which is insane to think about. And just like real quick on Bournemouth, they could have, if they didn't lose to Liverpool this past weekend, they easily could have been in fourth place right now, also being in a Champions League spot. They obviously still have a lot of potential to do so, but regardless, we're going to talk about Nottingham Forest. We had Chris Wood scoring a hat trick. We had Alanga completing a hat trick of assists, and they were essentially just way too good for Brighton. Nottingham were dangerous. They were fast. They were aggressive. They were so clinical in every move that they made that it just wasn't surprising that they beat him 7-0. And in terms of the style of play that Nottingham play, I mean, like, I'm not a tactical genius, but they don't really essentially play a very sexy, like, modern day style of football, but they are just so good at both attacking and defending that it just really doesn't matter. And for Brighton, dude, like, I don't want to like focus on the negative on Brighton, but God, dude, that was just awful football. Both in and out of possession was so poor. Their defense was atrocious. Obviously, Dunk got the own goal, so it just made him look really bad. The midfield, like, everything was just bad. It was just so bad. And this is also a Brighton team with a newly signed player of Diego Gomez for Inter Miami. If you've been following my channel, I do a lot of Inter Miami content. So Diego Gomez hitting the pitch in the 46th minute, and then obviously, I mean, like, he could only do so much with a really poor Brighton on the day. Hopefully that doesn't make him look bad. We still miss him at Inter Miami. He is welcome back anytime. Props to Nottingham Forest. Like, it's just so insane what they've been doing. Completely overachieving. I really want to see Nottingham Forest now play against the top teams in Europe and really play, whether that's in Champions League or Europa League. I just really want to see them play in Europe because I feel like they can give a lot of teams a run for their money. Also, want to give a quick shout out to Manchester United for also losing. That's really bad, taking a 2-0 loss against Crystal Palace. That is just so embarrassing, guys. Meanwhile, Anthony is over at Real Betis celebrating over a phantom goal. Thank you guys so much for watching this edition of Monday Night Football, where we recap the biggest games that went on over the weekend. If you guys liked this episode, make sure to check out my last episode from last week. This kind of content is going to be coming out every Monday when the weekend is over, so make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a video. I do Inter Miami content as well, talking about Messi, Busi, Suarez, and Jordi. So if you like that sort of thing, check out the link in the description for my playlist where I go live talking about a bunch of Inter Miami news. But I'll see you guys in the next video.